I just want to say it's a treat for me to be here. I looked at all the speakers on the list here and this kind of felt inadequate compared to a lot of people that are here. But hopefully myself and Ed will give you some information, one or two things that you can take with you that will help you, whether it be with injury rehab or training or, routines or whatnot. So if you got any questions as we go along, it probably works best. Raise your hand, ask them. And we may veer off the path a little bit, but sometimes that works best. What I probably would like to do, and we'll kind of go back and forth on what we're doing here, is just give some training philosophies that I have. And some people may not know this. I owe a lot to what I have to Ed. Ed got me to where I was. I trained with him for 2 years, was in another field, and he helped me get the UNLV, called Dan Austin up, who I worked and trained with for a while, and got me in the strength field. So a lot of people don't know that. I owe a lot to this guy right here, and that's why I'm here helping him out with his talk. Obviously, he can do it himself. He's in a position I was in a little while ago, so I can feel for him. But we were training partners from 1989 to about 1991 before I moved on down to Las Vegas. So we kind of meshed our training philosophies together. We keep in touch a lot, talk about things. And, I'll just go over, what we believe in as far as training for powerlifting. And I think the number one thing is there's 1,000,001 ways to train for powerlifting. I'm not going to badmouth anybody's way of training. If it works for you, you find something that works, I think you need to stick with it. There's, the West Side philosophies. There's all different philosophies out there. And I think there's a lot of things that work. But I think when we were lifting together, we had a synergy together, I think, that helped out a lot and got along and could kind of read each other a little bit, although, I wasn't handling the kind of weights he was handling. As a matter of fact, it was scary even to spot him sometimes, but, we have similar ideas on what we're going to go over today. And I think the number one thing is we train the 3 lifts. Obviously you're going to train the squat to squat, bench to bench, but I think, a lot of people try and train around the deadlift a little bit, and I think we hit them all, and exercises that help those 3 lifts. So we're going to do lifting to help our squat, lifting to help our bench, and obviously separate lifting to help our deadlift. We're not squatting to help our deadlift, things like that. And that's just the way I believe. I think you got to do a lift to get better at the lift, and that's kind of the way we trained when we were there. So, and I think you need to identify your weak areas. Everybody has weak areas somewhere, and I think you need to identify what they are and work on them, and not just your strong areas. It's good to go up if you're a good bench presser and show everybody you can bench press a certain weight, but you got to find out where your weak areas are in your other lifts and make sure you identify them and find ways to fix them. And
everybody has a limit. Everyone can get to a 500 or 600 pound squat, or it's pretty cool to get to a 500 pound bench press, but why are so many people stuck there and no one else goes any higher? That's where you start developing your weak points.
I think there's a strong focus on technique when I trained with them. And when I got there, I didn't know what I was doing, really. I was winning some contests, maybe just because I was lucky, not national contests yet. But there's a strong focus on technique, making sure the technique is perfect. Because I think once the technique, he said something to me one time when I trained. He said, you're not going to miss a weight because you're not capable of doing the weight. You're going to miss a weight because the bar path or something's incorrect, which makes you have to be stronger to lift the weight. So, there's the technique is so important. It's just not getting in there and lifting a weight. It's focusing on the little details, which make the big difference from making an attempt and missing an attempt. And I think Ed's a classic example of that. He can talk on technique, and which we'll go over on each one of these lifts, and we'll go through the technique.
We'll actually bring people up during squat, bench, deadlift, and such that want to come up, and we'll actually help them with technique.
And I think one area there's a lot of different philosophies in is use of equipment. And I believe you have to get strong without equipment first. Weight belts, wraps, and all that are commonplace. But I think if you're relying on an external device to make you stronger, then you're missing the boat. I think first of all you got to train and get strong without equipment, and then have set points in your mind when you want to put the equipment on. But down at UNLV with my athletes, I'm always trying to convince them, don't go and grab. I won't tell them they can't use a belt, but I'm going to try and convince them not to use a belt. We eliminated any knee wraps, things like that. I want to get our guys strong without any kind of weightlifting equipment first, and then add the equipment, which is going to make you that much stronger. Obviously, you got to get used to it, using it during a competition, but I think you got to focus on your base strength first before you go on and depend upon it.
So you don't become an equipment expert.
I think when he was lifting, he was, he'd have Max's straps down or no equipment, and he wouldn't put the equipment on until he needed it. Wouldn't pull the straps up until he needed it. Wouldn't wrap his knees till he needed it. Wouldn't have a belt on. And he's pulling 800 pounds, no belt on, deadlift, stuff like that, where, until he needed it. Just because you can add that much more to your strength depending upon not having that equipment there. So I think, that's a philosophy that different people have, where some guys will train and grab the equipment right away, and I don't believe in that, and I don't think, Ed does since I left him either. And I believe in the workouts that we're doing, I believe in periodized workouts. Now that's another, West Side does their thing, a lot of people do their thing, and everything, it works if you believe in it and you're going to stick to it. But I periodize the workouts and where the percentages are going up each week, the intensity's going up, the volume's coming down, cycling up for a workout, for a competition. Now the off season's a little bit different. We could talk about that a little bit later.
As long as you don't overtrain, you don't get hurt, and you have a method to whatever you're doing, something's good going to happen.
So, and that was my next, don't overtrain. One thing he taught me is always to save a rep. You don't always have to go till you fail. And I think a lot of people want to always find their limits all the time, and I think that sets mental blocks in your mind. If you can do 5 reps and 6 is a maybe, why not finish on a positive note, hit 5, and look forward to your next week's workout where you ended on a successful note. I think a lot of times when you're getting that help on that last rep, you remember the week before if your workout was good or not. If you pop them weights up pretty easy, I got one more in me, then you're always thinking, hey, I got more left in me next week, it's going to be a good workout. But if you find your limits, then you never know what you can do the next week. And that's one thing he taught me. You don't always have to go. If the workout says 4 reps, and you've thought through your workout and you kind of know what you can do, stick to the 4 reps if you're in the middle of your workout. You don't have to hit 6 there, and the next week you're overtrained and you can't do the 3 you wanted.
Too many people think they always think of going heavy or maxing out as a single rep, and that was the most you could do. If you do so much as just a set of 10, and that last rep you almost can barely get it, that's still a 100% max intensity set, and you can burn out on 10s or 8s or 5s just as easy as you can on a single.
What I have down as far as what we talked about doing next is going through the technique of each lift. And what we can do is go through the technique, explain it a little bit, and then bring people up if you like, or if you got questions, fire them away. I know a lot of this has been rehashed, a million times over. A lot of people have questions on it. So it's kind of an area where some people know how to do it and some people got questions on it. So
for someone to squat who has problems squatting, and for everyone else to see how it's corrected, usually helps pretty good.
All right, I'll just load a few plates on to make it a little bit easier as far as. Do we want to get somebody up here right away, or you want to?
Does anybody have problems squatting?
Anybody want to go over to squat themselves? Come on up. Saves my knees a little bit.
How do you normally walk to the bar? Everything you do has to be the same from the first warm-up to the last time. Okay. There's never a change, it's just automatic. Okay.
I think hand placement on bars, measure of flexibility too.
Now the way you're starting off already, first of all, if you go with a wider stance squat,
yeah, I do.
Then having the bar that high is going to draw you a lot forward faster. If you're going with a high bar, set to go out here, it's not going to work. You're always going to be getting drawn forward. And by the way, if you saw what he did, right when he grabbed the bar, when he was going to take it off, the elbows were already up in the air, so your shoulders are pointed forward. So the first thing you're going to do when you squat, after you come out, is you're going to be like this all the time as soon as it gets hard.
Okay.
Did everybody hear that? About the elbows, getting the elbows underneath the bar, not pointing them back.
So if you're going to stay wide, the bar should be rested right on your back delts. What I do is when I get under the bar, I actually wiggle in, a little butt wiggle. And as I'm wiggling in and grabbing the bar, I'm pushing my body weight against the bar, squeezing everything as tight as I can so it's like a big rubber ball. Like even my back delts, because that's where I want the weight to sit. Okay. Then you just kind of stand up, push it up. see, exactly. And see by the fact that you see how his elbows are already, it's a bad position already.
Do you have a flexibility problem with your shoulders getting your hands in closer?
Well, I have dislocated with my shoulders.
Okay, just squat. Head should be up, back should be arched. See, it's harder to arch your back here, right in the mid-back, when you're getting drawn forward.
Right.
Squat again. Squat again. Right, go ahead, push. His hips haven't even started pushing forward yet. Rack it. So as he was that wide, and you started coming up, it's okay to sit back, relax your hips, don't keep your hip flexors tight, relax them, or else your knees will get drawn forward or drawn in. And when you push up, you pushed up here,
Yeah.
and as you can see, his hips didn't even come involved yet. So the amount of power he's using is so much diminished.
Right.
If you go that wide, you have to maintain more upright. So when you hit, your hips start coming forward right away. If you're bent over like this, even slightly, the way your shoulders work, that keeps you forward and it keeps your butt starting to come up. That position right away.
Right.
And as soon as you get heavy enough, boom.
Exactly.
That's, your weak point may not be your legs, it may not be your hips, it's your technique which takes away from the rest of the whole lift. Which is less progress in the long run.
I think he had a relatively wide stance. When I squatted, he was always trying to widen me out, but I was always here. Which, you kind of got to get a feel of where your strong point is, and your hips are in your legs. And I think, if you see somebody in their way out here and they tend to squat and you try it and your strong point's not there, maybe you want to try and play with your squat, your foot position to see where your strong point is. It may be in there, I don't know. I think a lot of times you get more out of your suit later on if you're sitting back into it with a wider stance, but I never found that I thought was as powerful as bringing my feet in underneath. And I think when you're here and you sit back, you tend to roll your shoulders over instead of being able to sit upright and pull your elbows underneath the bar if your feet are a little bit closer together. I was more of a leg squatter than a hip squatter. So I think the key point is you got to play with what feels comfortable to you. You should be able
Exact hip squatter rather than a leg squatter. Everyone's different, but the basic form shouldn't really change.
Right. So to bring my hips forward more, like I need to stay more.
It doesn't have to be upright as long as the back stays arched.
Right.
You don't have to be like this. That's an Olympic lifting squat.
Okay.
But as you hit here, your back shouldn't round. Your upper back should stay upright.
Yeah.
So when you hit here, as soon as you go to push, when you arch your upper back even harder, here, your hips start moving forward right away. You're taking your hips completely out of the movement.
You want to lead with your head a little bit more too. As you're coming down and you're here, pull your head up. I keep my head in neutral position until I'm coming out of the hole, and then I'm here, which helps pull my hips through. Now I got a little narrower stance, so it's a little bit easier for me than the wider stance. But
it could be a domino effect by the fact that you take your grip out so wide and your elbows up, that causes one thing to happen, then another, then another.
Okay. Thanks.
You want to have him go again?
Yeah, why don't you go again?
Okay.
See if you can take a slightly closer grip. Actually, I start out real wide until I get warmed up enough to where I can bring it in and also. Take a closer stance when you take it out of the rack also.
Yeah, there you go. Keep your upper back right now.
Yep, and squeeze your shoulder blades together.
I don't have it. Squat.
Yeah. See how it feels.
Got it.
Now, obviously, that's a little bit longer range of motion, but you got to find out where your strong point is. One thing we didn't talk about is breathing. And I think, especially with people that are new to lifting and, a lot of the athletes I have, they have no concept on what they're doing as far as breathing goes, and getting their abs tight, squeezing their abs, their lower abs, taking a deep breath in. It's almost like if you're a guy, you're stopping urinating or something. I mean, that's how it supports your spine. So you set your squat up, I'm breathing in and squeezing my abs in here, and I think when you put, going back to the equipment use, you put a belt on, and it's almost the opposite effect. You're pushing out against the belt to get support for your spine, whereas when you don't have the belt on, you set up and you're tightening your abs up to provide that support for your spine. So I don't think people realize how important breathing, sucking that air in and tightening the abs up actually is. You know, and I know a lot of my athletes don't.
As soon as you let out your air, you'll see guys just crumble. So you got to hold that. What's that, right? Interthoracic pressure right there.
Has anybody got any questions on the technique?
Yeah, what would you do in sets of 8?
I pace myself. Kind of like a marathon runner. You're not going to go out and see how fast you can run right away. You're going to pace yourself. So I'll try to hit at least 3 to 4 reps on one breath to start. And then it's like 2 and then 1, 1.
I could never do that. I was one breath and that was it. Now bench press I can hold for forever. But squat it was maybe 2. But I could never hold it for a long time.
I don't concentrate on trying to stick to the belly. I'm still keeping my abs as fast as possible. I'm not sucking them in. If you just keep them really tight, they're going to naturally push it to the belly. But I don't consciously try to push them out.
Basically, you're going to get your abs and core stronger lifting without a belt than you are. It's kind of like the fat guys you see at Home Depots or whatever. You know, they wear them belts around, and you know the workman's comp cases haven't gone down at all because they're getting all that support. And it's not strengthening them up at all. Obviously, they need to go through some kind of strengthening program. But I think for me, it's an external device to lift more weight. You know, if I can lift more weight in an overhead lift, a squat lift, or a deadlift with the belt on versus the belt off, but I train as much as I can without the belt on. I don't need to put the belt on to figure out how what I can do. Close to, yeah, I'm getting around 90-85%. Or your technique breaks down. You know, I mean, if your technique breaks down, you can fix it. Obviously, you might want to put it on.
I was just going to say, I don't think when you're a power athlete, a wasp waist was good for anything. I just think
You can get away with it for deadlifters, but for squatters and for that type of power, you need to thicken it up.
I was saying, because when you see guys like 600 plus in squats, they almost invariably have a bit of a power belly, not a fat belly, but it's there because I mean years and years of pushing it.
The story I have, Yuri Spinov from the Ukraine squat at 947 without a belt and didn't bend over one bit. And I asked him why he didn't have a belt. He said, I build my own belt.
Right.
Same thing. Why can an Olympic weightlifter do a clean with 600 down in the hole and come up like nothing and still be erect and not fall over?
When I used to be a bodybuilder, I noticed that my squat always, when I started getting closer to the competition, my waist was just shrinking badly. The strength was still there in my back and my legs, but I always pitched the weight as my...
You know what that tells you? Don't be a bodybuilder.
Exactly. That's why I'm not.
You can eat better, What I got down next for each section, or we can wait till the end, is talk about program design a little bit.
Does anybody need any more help in the squat? I mean, we can wait afterwards and do it if you don't want to do it on camera.
Foot position, for me, being a narrow squatter, if I'm going to squat, mine's always slightly out. It opens my hips up. If I tend to point my toes forward, I lean forward on my feet. And this tends to put the weight on the outside and back part of my feet. So I can sit my hips back. When I teach a squat to my athletes or when I squat myself, the first initial motion is sitting the hips back. Something he taught me and Dan Austin taught me, but it's back this direction, trying to keep my shins straight up and down and then coming up. But if I do this, it messes it up. I'm always forward just because I tend to want to lean forward on the front of my feet.
Almost the same thing as the other gentleman when we showed him how to squat. If you don't point your toes out slightly, especially for a power squat, what happens, and I'll show you. Here's toes straight, is when you squat, I can't go all the way down. You push up, see where your hips are. I won't change how wide I'm going. All I'll do is point my toes out and squat, and you can see how your hips activate right away. You're able to push them through. And it's the same with the deadlift too.
For athletes that don't, at UNLV, for your athletes that don't power lift, but still want maximal strength for sport, do you play around with foot position? Do you keep them in
You know, I keep them, yeah, you know, I've had guys that want to do this, and they're not playing in that position. So I try and pull them somewhat close to shoulder width apart. You know, and within that, they can vary a little bit. Very rarely do I got a guy that wants to come in this close, but usually you're playing in this type of position here. No matter what sport you're playing, basketball, football, you know, it's an athletic position. So for them to then do this, for me, now you're working the lift and not the sport, but at the same time, it doesn't make sense to me. So in my, you know, simple mind that I have, I just want to pull them in somewhere close. So, go ahead.
For your athletes, how do you judge depth? Can you tell them parallel, below?
You know, I think I watch them all score. There's some guys I got that can go way below parallel, some guys at parallel, some guys slightly above parallel. And I see them squat, so when I test it, I know how far they've gone. But if I get a kid that's really stiff, we won't even back squat first. I'll just throw them on front squats. And they'll do front squats till they get the torso strength and the flexibility, because you can't front squat wrong. Because if I'm here and I'm standing up and I'm leaning forward, you drop the bar on the ground. You know, I mean, you're basically forced to do it correctly. And, you know, we'll put straps on the bar if they don't have the flexibility in their upper body or whatnot. And I got a few that they want to do this here, and then it's this, right? Because their strong points are taken over and they can't stand upright. So I just pull them off until, you know, we can get them in a proper position. A lot of it's flexibility from high school. A lot of guys bench press, never squatted, didn't work on flexibility. So you spend the first year tearing them down and then trying to build them back up the right way. And you fight them. I mean, you're more interested in getting them in the right position than they are sometimes. So
you would pretty much just recommend do on flexibility how low they could get. Would you tell someone that they can squat ass to the ground, they squat ass to the ground?
You know, in my opinion, I think for athletics and what I'm dealing with, you could almost go, there's a laxity involved going too deep. We want to be at or below parallel, and we'll fight to get there. Now, is everybody always there? You know, I'm on guys all the time. I got guys there 5 years that'll, you know, until you tell them, hey, get your ass down farther, they're going to squat high. You know, it's path of least resistance for the athletes I'm dealing with. They just want to get the workout in, a lot of them. So we want to get the parallel or a little bit below. Now, to do high bar squats, I get a little nervous just on focus of the athlete and getting injured and things like that. So I would say we're just trying to get the parallel. And if a guy's above parallel, we're working at getting them to parallel or below. So.
Do you guys use any type of box squatting at all?
Yeah, when I teach it initially, we do bench squats, box squats, getting the hips sitting back, upright position at the torso, and then we'll pull it out. So it's basically we're trying to figure out progressions. You know, so if I can get the kid, and I don't care what the depth is. Right now, I got new guys for 2 weeks. All we're doing is boom, not relaxing, just sitting down, staying tight, coming up. If I can get them doing that, and then have them step away with the bar on their back, boom, and come up, and we'll do, you know, when we do progression, maybe pause squat warm-ups, and then regular squats, and then build the weight up. So.
By using the box to start them on squat, does that just alleviate some of the anxiety they have when they're nervous to squat?
Yeah, they're scared. Where, you know, I mean, a lot of guys never squatted in high school, and I always tell them, how do you sit down? They all know how to sit down on a couch. Sit down, they plop down, they grab the channel changer and a bag of chips. You know, so. I'll tell you, how do you sit down on a chair? It's the same motion. Your shins are vertical as possible. They come forward a little bit, but it's no different. I said, if you would do this when you sat down in a chair, you'd fall on the ground. So just think about how you're sitting down in a chair, and that's how we'll teach them. That's the reason behind the bench. Sometimes it's a little high, a little low for a guy, depending upon the height. We're not too interested in the height right now. Just getting the hips going back and the shins straight up and down. So.
My biggest problem is when I get down to the bottom, I lose my arch, my ass tucks under. Besides stretching, is there anything else I can do for that?
Oh, you're here, and then it's this?
No, I don't lean forward. My ass tucks under.
His pelvis shifts anteriorly forward.
I lose my arch, yeah.
You're relaxing a lot.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, you got to stay a lot tighter. You want to try that?
Sure, that's kind of high though.
Is the weight okay?
Yeah.
I set it up for Ed. I thought he was a little taller than he is. I heard that one time. At Quad's gym, I guess Eddie was competing one time, and it was dead silent, and he was about ready to squat, and somebody goes, boy, I thought he was taller than that. Oh, we fixed you already. He rotates underneath a little bit, yeah.
It's your tightness on the bottom. When you're getting down to here, you're different than when you get to here. Here you're staying tight, then here you're almost relaxing and you're letting it just come like this. Instead of staying tight all the way back and staying back on it, pushing from your hands.
Is that more mental than anything?
It's a last. You got it like what I told him. Every single rep from every set has a purpose, and you got to make it the same for every single thing. So then you take out that variable. So it's that's one other question. And like what you talked about before is normally unless you're only capable of a 500-pound squat and try 550, you're not going to miss something over a little bit over 500. Unless it's a lateral form or something like that. I think that's what you're doing. If you didn't do it on the first rep, there's no reason why you should do it on the second rep. That's a mental lapse.
And some people just have a predisposition for the hips rotating underneath and may have an imbalance. You know, I got an athlete right now I just had up in Vancouver. I was telling somebody about, you know, we got to pull him off the squats because his hips are tilted forward a little bit and he's starting to create problems and imbalance. He's actually got a hernia right now that we're trying to fix. But his body structure is that way. He's actually a linebacker that's 245 that plays tennis too, believe it or not. And but he's got imbalances all over the place, you know. But we're trying to fix that imbalance before we go back and have him go down to, you know, the proper depth and squat. We may, you know, for his purpose, may never get him there. But some people, body structures or imbalances just may create that problem also. Now, when I squat, I sit back and I'll almost intentionally rotate my hips under to give myself a little speed off the bottom, but haven't hurt myself yet doing it. But like I said, I haven't hurt myself yet doing it. But
And when I squat, when I actually, I'll bend my knees, sit my butt back, and then I actually just let my hips go and go straight down. If I try to keep my hips tight, my legs will come in or my knees will shoot forward. So that's what I have to do. But that usually keeps me in a better alignment to do the lift I want.
go ahead. So you had to hit him.
I find when I squat with my toes out that it's easier to get depth, it's easier to get below parallel, and then I come out of the hole faster, but then I have a lower sticking point. And when I squat wide stance, toes straight ahead, it's harder to get depth, but I come out of the hole and get much higher before I get a sticking point. It's a way high sticking point. It's like this much higher. And I guess it's just because I'm not using my hips as much, but...
Which way do you lift? Where you're stronger at? This position?
The same.
It's the same, so it's actually the same sticking point, but it's just the distance where you're going to hit that sticking point is different from going closer or going wide. My sticking point when I go conventional style deadlifts is right here. When I go sumo, since I'm wider, it's right here. It's the same weakness. It's not changing your weakness. It's just where you're hitting it. And if you're going in a powerlifting practice, you got to hit depth. That's your main thing first, or else you're going. So I would say a little bit closer stance, and maybe you can half the distance and try to work on what your weak point is.
How do I know what my weakness is?
You can come out of the hole no problem. With a closer stance, you come out of the hole no problem. And where does the sticking point hit?
Really high. My squat sticking point is very high. I think you're talking more, I don't think so, stance width, aren't you? You're talking about
Toe position?
Yeah.
This versus that, right? Yeah, come on up.
You're not getting out of it that easy. Show us.
I met you in Detroit at CJ's similar.
I remember. You were bigger back then, though, weren't you? You were heavier then?
Go CPU.
First do the closer one. Where you normally are. Do that one again. Do it again now. what you're doing is you're waiting too long to start getting your hips into the action. Go again. Right there, you should be using your hips already, and you're not using it until you're right near the top, but you're in a bad position. We have to lock out your hips. Okay. If you use your hips from the bottom, like we said, you're pushing, and then you're deciding to try to use your hips right there. That's way too late. You got to try to get them involved right away. I would actually point your toes out just a tad bit more.
Okay, do you want to compare with toes to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
That looks painful.
It looks like you're leaning forward a little bit more with that style than the other style.
I'm just a strong one.
It's the same. It's obviously the same weak point, though.
Okay. So you're saying
You're not using your hips fast enough. On the bottom, you're waiting too long to use your hips.
Just an observation, since I have bird's eye, he doesn't center his body center between his feet. His body center is towards his left leg. You know what I'm saying is your crotch should drop right in the middle.
He's favoring one side.
Favoring one side. Towards your left.
Five of the operations are
Okay.
two major weak instructions.
There you go. Maybe that's a causing imbalance where it's causing you not to be able to lock out your hips till too late.
But I got to fire hips earlier.
Yeah.
I can do that with box squats too. That'll help.
A low box.
Yeah.
Just to learn.
I'll do more low box squats.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Leading into something we talked about just now, assistance exercises. I think, in my opinion, in the off season, you know, when you're training for a contest, 8 weeks, whatever your cycle is, you know, you're hopefully in decent shape. You know, you're peaking yourself up for that contest. I think in your off season, when you're not training for a contest, is when you're going to try and correct imbalances. And I think with the squat, a lot of more individual leg work stuff I think you neglect to do, and I would add to a lot of your programs. Step-ups, lunges, even front squats, which is an individual, but it's a different motion. I think you got to try and correct that, the weak points of your squat before you're going and training and saying you're hitting your percentages all the way up for a contest. So, you know, if having a knee injury, I always pushed off on the stronger knee all the time, and you know, then I had to go back and focus and do one-legged squats off a power rack and just focus on working that side extra. So you got to identify which side's stronger than the other side and try and have it catch up to the more dominant the side of your squat if you're leaning one way or the other. Because I was here when I had my first knee injury, and I'm over on this side, and having people watch me, had a trainer watch me to see if I was lunging or not, and I just tried to work the other side to have it catch up, and I had a lot of imbalances. I was, you know, hips were out of place all the time. It took a long time to where I could sit back in a straight motion and not lean to one side or the other. I think you forget about it sometimes. You just go about your business and you forget, oh yeah, I got to go do some extra work to have my weak points catch up. And I'm captain at doing that in my own training a lot of times. I forget, you know, I got to go work on this. And I think your off-season program for your assistance work should be more focused on, you know, higher volume, individual leg exercises to catch up one side to the other. And then I think you'll see a positive carryover to.
Without that, you may be scared because at first when you start, like, I'll do a lot of high bar squats, close stance in the off season with no equipment. And I mean, because all my strength or else my legs would be huge is from here to here. So my quads, I know, had to get bigger and stronger. And that's the one thing that works for me. Now, it scared the hell out of me because when I first started doing regular squats again after the off season, it felt horrible. And I felt like I was never going to get back. Then all of a sudden it clicks again. And then you realize how strong you got in the off season to help out your lift.
Can you demonstrate the technique on some of those things you're talking about, like the front squat, the high bar squat, close grip?
I'll do front squats, which may be ugly right now. I don't, you know, when we do them, I'll cross over myself, and I'll do them that way. I teach my athletes, because we do a lot of cleans, hand cleans, power cleans, and I want them to get more flexible in here. And normally I'll do them like that, But some of the events we're doing, we're carrying objects in front, or so the crossover is actually more beneficial for my type of training. So I can do, you know, each way, and you can kind of get the idea. Normally, the position of the bar on the shoulders is going to be the same. If I'm crossing over and I'm doing a front squat, I want to rest it on the front of my shoulders. Okay, my foot position for me is the same. Slightly wider shoulder width. Toes are flared out a little bit, and I'm going to sit my hips back in the same position. Only I got to make sure my torso remains upright to balance the bar out. Okay, so I'm going to come down here, pause, come back up. Okay, and I think for an athletic point of view, we do a lot of these because they're better for athletes. Just more torso strength. So we sit back. Down. Now when we do it, when I teach my athletes, and they hate me because a lot of them are not very flexible. When I grip the bar roll tight and they can't get their elbows up, I'll just have them hold it with a couple fingers, rotate their elbows underneath, bars in the same position. The more bicep work you do, you know, the harder this is. That's why, you know, arm work in general, a lot of Olympic lifters are so flexible, they're not doing much bicep work. Here, down, come up, same positions. And what we'll do, I got my basketball team here, is, you know, some you see is we can put lifting straps on there. Then they can hang on that, gives them just a little more elbow lift. I tell them when they go down, if you come down, elbows come up. So if they're here, elbows come up. All right, you got to balance it out somehow. If they start dropping their elbows, the bar rolls off. You can't do it wrong.
That was the only way I was able to.
Is this a higher rep exercise?
No, I don't. It's actually less. You know, we'll do usually 5 down, more of Olympic type rep sequences, just because you know it's hard to hold yourself. If your head's in between, you have a hard time getting that position to do 8 reps. So sitting there at the end, oh shit, my wrist. If you're doing 3 sets of 8 normally in a squat, you can do 8 sets of 3 more to, you know, the shorter sets, and just do short rest in between.
Would you ever do that off of the box as well?
I haven't yet. You could. I've taught them that way, but not as part of my workout. It's just more of a teaching tool, just to get in this position, sitting hips back.
Yeah, if you would, I think it would have to be a real low box, because if you hit it too high above parallel, I think it'll continue right when you start pushing, since everything's in front of you, then you push it forward. He was waiting for a long time. Make it round. I've never tried that. I try to keep as tight as possible to maintain position in the same manner as I would squat. I think like good mornings, and there's other exercises about that. If you have to go heavy, you have to go heavy enough. You say to round over during a low box spot to make your upper back stronger. I think if you're heavy, you have to go heavy enough to the point to cause some type of development or to get it stronger where it might be too dangerous.
I don't think, you know, in my opinion, doing some of the stuff I've done, there's not many bad lifts that you can do. You can design 1,000,001 lifts. You can round back, bar away from you deadlifts if you want, as long as you're preparing your body to do the lift. Obviously, you set yourself up for a little more injury, but you'll see some, you know, in some of the contests I'm in, some extraordinary things. And if you put yourself in that position and gradually train your body in a certain position, you cannot injure yourself. It's when you get in that position without being in that position. You know, I did one of my knees doing the Coan's wheel, and I watched 30 guys out of 32, I was third to the last, do this and drop it. So I get a bunch of ammonia, I'm all psyched up, pick it up. Oh, this feels pretty good, it's up on my neck. And only my knees are in this position, some position I really don't want to be in, you know. But it was something I didn't do in training. It's supposed to be here. But you see a bunch of guys fail at it, they couldn't pick it up, and I picked it up, and oh, this feels, boom, there goes my knee, because it was in a position and hadn't been in before. And when I rehabbed it, I made sure I put it in that position to compensate. Now, you know, I'm not throwing a bunch of weight on it right away, but I'm gradually building it up to where I'm in a position that hopefully it never happens again. And the size of my tendons right now, I don't think it will, but, you know, they're a little scarred up. But, you know, we're trying to, what I'm trying to say is that may not be wrong. It's just don't throw a bunch of weight on there and try it right away. Try it real light. Maybe you try it, doesn't work. Maybe you try it, it feels like it helps you. But, excuse me? Well, that, you know, I'm not going to say, like I said, you know.
But I would think you'd have to condition yourself to that point. I just wouldn't never try it and then try your next effort and try that. That's what he was saying.
Yeah, I remember when I used squats, they used to squat to the floor. And when I got really weight, I found when I went down, I was using too much spring, right? And like I said, my weight was going up, but I knew that somehow, like, as the weight goes up, I think it would eventually lead into like popping a kneecap or something. So then I tried to do, like I watch you and I see how you do the sumo style deadlift. And I work on the striking point, it's less range, and I pull a lot of weight that way. And then when I go to do my squats, I tried the wider stance, and I found out that when I went low, I hit a striking point, I couldn't go any lower, but I found I was using too much like in between the hip and the joints, and I could feel pain in between, you know, the hip.
With the wider?
Yeah, with the wider
But
stance.
it worked for sumo, but it didn't work for squats.
Yeah, it worked for sumo deadlift, like perfect. But when I do my squats, like I get my hips right back and everything, but just like you said, right here,
Just what we were saying is,
and I don't know how
the closer stance squat than I go to. Because I was more of a hip squatter, he was more of a leg squatter.
What I want to do is, like, I want to go through, like, set the sumo, you go through less range. Like, I find.
So you want to try to do the same for the squat.
Yeah, exactly. I
But
want to try to.
You may not be built for it.
Yeah, I
to
want
be
to go
that wider squat in that low position.
Something, you know, like the thing with squats, people don't know when they're going down how low to go, and if they're up, you know, too high.
You just go down low all the time. Yeah, but you may be built to go sumo, but you're not built to go squat that wide. It is different. Yeah, it's a different movement.
I could sumo a certain amount up, not as much as I could conventional, but there's no way I could squat like this. I mean, I couldn't do that either. I mean, it's just I'm not set up to do it. My leverages aren't correct to be able to do that. But I could get to where, you know, sumoing like Ed, I could pull pretty good weight that way. Not close. I couldn't squat close to what I could sumo though. So I mean, I found an area where it felt good in each lift, and just play with it enough to where you may never be able to do that. Maybe, you know, just not having as much of a range of motion isn't the answer. Maybe you need more range of motion, being stronger in that range of motion, than trying to shorten it up a little bit, you know.
I know, like I said, a wider stance with the sumo deadlift, you're going not as low, you know, it's less pull. And when you do the squat, right, closer leg, you know, you're going down further. And like I said, I want to prevent, like, I want to limit the options, you know, I like to go this low and I
try to find a happy medium.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah.
I know, so.
If you were worried about your knees coming over your feet or knee problems from the squats being there?
Not like that. I'm just like you said, when I go low, I'm always in the back of my head. Am I going low enough? Yeah, you know, the proper distance, you know. More work, so. I've seen you in some pictures, and you're pretty low with a wide stance as I try doing it.
I really don't have that wide of a stance in the squat, but I turn my toes on a lot.
Yeah, that's what I do when I do.
Stand up for a second. How tall are you?
5'11".
You're not me.
Yeah. Well, I do when I do the deadlift.
Yeah, you know, a lot of the form and technique work is pretty close to the same, but you're not me.
Yeah.
Has anybody got any more questions on the squat?
One question over here. With your athletes, do you work on tempo? Do you range your tempo? Like maybe more in season, more explosive movements always? Right? Do you guys always think about going up concentric phase like as fast as possible always? Or
you know, I tell them, I try not to make it too complicated. I'm not dealing with, you know, mental geniuses. Not that I am either, but, you know, I'm just, so, you know, you're a reflection of your coach, I guess, you know. But, so I'm trying to, I say down steady, accelerate the weight up. So, you know, we're not playing with tempo, you know, down 2 seconds, pause, up 3 seconds, that type of thing. We're just trying to come down under controlled fashion. I got some guys that look like 𝙭Hammond sometimes, you know, and I'm like, oh, shit, you know, trying to see their kneecaps going through the wall. But we're trying to have everybody squat similar. Now, You know, I'm training the masses too, so we'll go through and try and individualize as much as we can, but we're trying to consistently tell them the same thing, and it's down, steady, accelerate up. We'll do some pause squat warm-ups and things like that, but we're trying to come up fast and work on acceleration. And during the in-season, we're lightening the load up enough where we can accelerate the weight. Now when we're in the off-season lifting a little bit heavier, you know, you're trying to accelerate the weight. Obviously, it's not going that fast. So, okay. You want to go through bench? You want to go through deadlift next, or?
To ask you, what's your take on the chains with squats or bench press? Do you use that at all for system?
I've never used it because I never had to.
Right.
What I do really works for me.
Right.
All you can do is try it and see if it works. I tried some chains once and I had a little bit of a problem controlling it.
You know what? I just saw. I just got a catalog in the mail. Some geniuses came up with this. I've tried chains myself. I found it to be a big pain in the ass. But this new catalog came in, and they actually have it welded to a sleeve, and you throw over the bar. I just saw it, and I said, "This is the way you use chains. If I'm going to use chains, I don't want to be. I have 20 links coming off the ground or whatever, you know." And it's like, okay, now I got to get those chains arranged. Yeah, this way. I mean, I know you're very controlled, so this might actually work out just perfectly.
All you can do is try it.
Yeah.
We messed around. I've messed around a little bit with it, but I try. You know, the concept. You think about the concept, and you're like, this has to work, you know. And we've done it with our athletes, and to be honest with you, test results, I've been inconclusive. I'm not saying it doesn't work. The concept to me, I'm sitting there thinking about chains and bands. It's got to work. You're trying to accelerate the weight. It's decelerating for you. You ain't got to worry about that. It's going to work. But my test results didn't reflect that when I tested my athletes out. So, you know, my opinion is, I'm not saying it doesn't work. I just, we do other stuff with bands, but not so much on the bench and the squat.
The chains always frustrated me. I just got, you know, it falls off, or you know,
it's a change for you, and it gets you excited about training again.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's off season or whatever, as long as you're working hard, it's going to help.
Right.
I just have a question about doing like speed squats. You recommend changing your stance for a speed squat and then your competition squat?
It all depends. If it's like off season,
Yeah.
you could fiddle around with it. But if that would be, if you set it at a weak point, then it would be okay. But if you set it at your strong point, you want to use your regular stance.
I would think in the off-season it'd be a good idea to change your foot position periodically just to get different parts of your legs and hips working. Whereas if you're doing it, you know, like you had asked, peaking for a meet, you want to, like he had said, everything should be the same. It should be automatic. You should almost feel, when you do a good lift, you should be able to close your eyes and feel if it was good or not. You know, if it was bad, you can feel your hips come up, you're leaning forward, whatever. You should almost have that feel. You should be able to tell yourself what you did wrong before your coach should be able to tell you. That's another thing he taught me. Once you do one right, remember how that feels, because then you should be able to do it over and over like that. And if you don't do it like that, then you can say, oh, I know what I did wrong. Maybe you don't know, somebody has to tell you, but you know it wasn't correct.
Yeah, unless it's like horrendously bad form, you can be able to identify it on the way down or on the way up and be able to correct it that fast. And that's a perfect practice all the time. Like I said, from 135 all the way up to whatever.
You want to go to bench? You want to go to deadlifts? Do you want to see deadlift stuff or bench? Deadlift, yeah, bench has probably been analyzed since the beginning of time. All right. And then we can go over some program design if you'd like, whatever. Deadlift. Somebody want to come on up? Come on, both of you, come on up. Okay, we need to talk about foot position underneath the bar and hand position on the bar.
Do it how you normally do it.
I think we need to put another plate on there.
Is everyone watching?
Sure.
Your first rep wasn't bad. The only thing wrong with your first rep was you pulled it up. You kept it out in front of you for a little too long. The farther you keep it out in front of you, the more it's going to drive forward. And you're in a position to pull it. When you push push it up, keep it close. As soon as you get down to up to your knees, that's when you actually keep driving with your legs. A lot of people, when they get to their knees, they try to use their hips too fast. You got to keep using your legs if you want to use your hips. So you keep driving as you're pushing your knees through. So you have to keep it close. If he was out in front of you here, by the time he got to here, his hips are too high. There's no way he can finish.
That's actually
And then after the first rep, every time you let the weight down, you go like this. Ready to pull.
Yeah.
You didn't relax your hips again and lean down. You're going down like this in a bad position to pull reps. So every rep after the first rep is building that technique.
Why don't you come and do one, and then we can put, no, stay up here, we can do another plate, because a lot of times we put more weight on, we ain't going to kill you or anything, but it shows you something different. It's like squatting with the bar, your technique's all different than having a few weights on each side.
Sorry. I don't want any box for What you want to do, go again. Use your hips and drive your chest up fast. Go again. Forward. If you wait too long in sumo, you're over at that part fast, that much faster.
Do you think about speed of your hips when you're doing that?
Yeah, you got to kick them in as fast as you can.
That's maybe why I was no good at it.
The sumo stance was always kind of in between, so I could pull and push at the same time.
You can try another one, see
If I try mine, I look over too.
So, divide closer, get far closer. Step up against it. There it goes. Yeah.
You want it close enough to where you're going to pull it past your legs and not scrape them up, but the farther you get it away from you, the harder it is to lift.
And then in. You try to lock out and you're close. Push it. Get down, do your hips look at it. Up, in.
He always taught me when I started deadlifting with him, it's a push followed by a pull. Pushing from the balls of the feet, accelerating up, and then you're pulling. So you shift your weight from the front to the back of your feet during the lift.
Some people actually, Kirk Kowalski, his only problem with deadlift is his grip. But he'll actually keep his big toe. But that seems to help. You look at it, right? You want to work on it. Set each rep up like it's one rep. Up, in, better. And down, same way. Now sit back. Get your butt down. Up, in. Start sitting back down. Upright.
I found that, I have one guy trained that's not an athlete, he's about 50, that the only time I like you, I'm not a big mirror person, but if you have a mirror on your side, your second rep, unless you're doing a max attempt, is always easier because as the gravity pulls the bar down, it puts it in perfect position for you if you let it go. Not drop it, but under control. And you reset your hips in your back position, the second rep is always easier because you're in perfect position. A lot of times on the first rep, you're leaning forward or back too far, and I find that in my own lifting too. So if I'm going to pull the deadlift here, and I pull the first one, all right, and I come down at a steady pace, boom, I'm in a perfect position, ready to go for the second one. And if you're not used to dropping your hips down, sometimes a mirror is good just to check that back position. Because you won't lose that momentum on the way down right away. You got a little, a slight delay there. Now, if you sit down there for 5 seconds, obviously you might get out of position again.
Look over really fast to see how high your butt is.
Glance over and say, hey, I got to sit back and use the weight to sit back into a position. Yeah, but the second one, unless you're doing a max attempt or close to it, is always in a better position than your first one. So you remember how that second one feels. Just because putting it down, it puts you in proper alignment. As long as you keep your body in proper alignment, you're not rounding your shoulders and leaning forward and dropping it or something, So, unless it's the max attempt. Obviously, you can do 2 at a max attempt, but...
Thanks. You know how long? I try to maintain as much tightness as possible. So when I set that down, it's a dead stop and then re-pull right away. I don't want my body to relax.
Yeah, I was just thinking maybe if you're too soon, then you're actually getting construction.
Exactly what he was talking about. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
actually raise my hips and then sitting
Sometimes that can be a detriment because if you take too much time in between, you run out of gas. And if you're going to do reps, if you're going to do like 8 sets of singles, well, that's different than doing a set of 8 reps or a set of 6.
It should be like down, pause, boom, up, down, pause, boom, up. You know, a good movement like that to where you got enough time to reset yourself. You can still use that downward momentum on the way back up on the next one, but you're not bouncing the weight either, because you start bouncing the weight, obviously you're getting out of position. But you got time to reset yourself without rushing into the next lift.
Reset at the bottom on a deadlift, right? Once you complete one, always reset.
What about standing up and resetting? Or should you stay down and just keep doing it?
No.
What do you mean standing up?
You can't stand
When
up.
you deadlift, stand up and then drop it down, and then just for that split second, and then go back down
It's
again.
good. You're going to run out of gas.
Yeah, it's too much effort.
Speed, you're going to use your hips. Drive the chest up and use your hips as fast as possible. Now sit down. See, up. Again, relax your hips a bit. Okay.
Yeah, but you're not. That's right. Keep going.
You're starting with the bar out a little bit in front of you. What I actually do is I'll pull against the bar. And as you pull against the bar, I pull myself in a better position so everything's getting forward.
Where's your weight on that? And on your feet? On the front, on the back, on the outside?
Towards about 3/4 of the way back, more on the inside. So right when you're walking up the bar, set your feet going down and just pulling. You're here. I'm going up to the bar, pulling against the bar, pull myself in a position. So when I'm ready to go, I'm like a rubber ball. It's just ready to bounce. Boom.
He's using the weight of the bar to hold himself in a position.
Wiggling myself in, hold myself in position, and just squeeze myself in position. Pull against the bar, put yourself in position. You're over the bar right now. Look how high the butt is.
Yep. Drop down.
Back. Relax your hips. Right there. Drive your chest up and control. Better. The only way to practice that is to do it. I would do a lot of reps. There's a lot of ways to build form.
You were talking about guys, 1, 4, 5, 6 days. Are you letting between? You're saying we're the same height. Are you letting slack in the bar between?
No, I stay tight the whole time.
So do you let? Okay, so you're.
I'm in that position, but it's up, boom. I'm tight, just making sure I'm not here. You know, that little bit, then all of a sudden I'm out in front. And then, you know, a lot of stuff I do now was, you know, reps at a certain weight or whatever. One screw up costs you a couple down the road. So
when you take that first rep, everything's tight, everything's going boom, you take it. You don't want to all of a sudden be from relaxed to trying to grab something, and it's going to fall. Yeah, I'm wiggling everything tight into a position, like a snake coiling around something. Right?
Wide enough stance.
There's not a lot wrong with that. Your first rep, it looked like you tried to stick your hips too low where there was no leverage to get out of the hole. So the first time you go to push, if you're too low, you're going to come up to a point fast with your butt raising up before you even get to a point where you can actually push and pull from.
that would have been a little bit faster. You know, I would have, you know, slight stop and then back up would have been, you know, otherwise you get that uneven bounce and you're coming back up.
Yeah, that's what I do. I try to do it. Just try to get real close, set myself real good. But I do what you do.
Yeah, you want to try to keep your back arched right over here. That's how I pull against the bar. Yeah. Yep. Better. Try to push your hips all the way through, right from the get-go. All the way through. Don't stop pushing at the top, lock it. What you're doing is right at the top, you get up to the top and almost looks like you just relax. Push your legs and your hips all the way to the top.
No, I just find that in the deadlift, I actually do get quite a bit of squats. What do you guys
I do the same thing. I mean, I get something out of my squat suit. It's an archaic one. I gotta maybe call you up and get a better one or something. But the belt and the suit tend to pull me back, keep me in a better position. But again, I'll go as heavy as I can with right at the end. You know, I can do my deadlifts without it and throw it on and not really get screwed up. But I know it's going to pull me back a little bit instead of being over the top of the weight a little bit. When I deadlift, I call it dip and drive method. I drop my hips way below where they should be, and I try and accelerate it up almost like a clean pull. So it's almost like having a squat suit on where I get something out of the suit because it's more, you know, a squat. I set my feet, and I'll be straight up and down, and then when I'm ready to go, I drop down below here, and when I start coming up, as soon as my arms straighten out, I'm going to pull the weight up. So it's like that. You know, I'm a leg deadlifter. I mean, not that I feel like I got a weak back, but I'm trying to, my point was, and now I'm not as good as it used to be after I hurt my knees a few times, but I'm trying to accelerate the bar up as fast as I can to my knees, where my sticking point usually is. I want to get there with as much speed as possible, then I don't have as much lockout, versus coming down, setting myself, and trying to just muscle the weight up, which is a little bit different than most people.
Long arms, short legs. So my butt tends to raise right away.
like Mark actually find that stay with a lot easier?
A couple of things. Position on this one again. You're more straightforward with these, the deadlift?
Yeah. Here, just narrow stance. I feel like it's almost like I'm doing a high pull with an Olympic movement. I feel like I got more power with my feet underneath my armpits. I kind of liken it to doing a vertical jump. I'm more powerful right here, and that's where I want my feet. Yeah, slight outward. I got a better base there. So I'm right here, and I just feel like here, if I'm going to jump, that's where I'd have my feet. So that's where my strong point is, and that's where I want to set them. If I get out a little wider, I don't feel as strong. I got a little bit better base, not as strong. Kind of like an offensive line. Better base, not as strong. No base, real strong. So
the wider has to use more hip, and that's not his thing.
Okay. And are you deadlifting in sock feet? And if so, how do you address pronation?
Wrestling shoes most of the time, but anymore I'll deadlift in these. Now I've just, yeah, well, the stuff I'm doing now, I don't feel that. If I know I got my shoes on, they got a little heel on them, I'll focus a little bit more. I'm not going to wear a big heel. But most of, you know, it's either a flat heel or a slight heel. You know, most of the time if I got them with me, I'll put my wrestling shoes on.
I wear the same, there's an Adidas Top 10 gym shoe that they used to make in the 80s. I had the same pair that when I first met Ricky at the Teenage Nationals in 1982. It's fairly flat, a hard sole, or hard, yeah, the whole thing, but it's just slightly raised, which helps me use where my strong point is.
I noticed a lot of the strongmen are doing their deadlifts in sock feet, but they're pronated as hell. And
yeah, most of them, there's not a lot of good, there's a few good deadlifters, but a lot of them.
Some of them aren't from a powerlifting background.
Right, okay.
And, you know, now you're getting, you know, like Brad Gillingham's, the grip's a problem. You know, for him, he could never roll his shoulders back, and a lot of the Europeans start going overhand grip, which you got to get used to. When the last time I competed was against Brad, and I got a bad finger, so I always hook grip, and in one hand, I can't bend the finger any more than that. So I started hooking my thumb just for necessity. I was dropping the bar. And then he was having a little problem with his grip, and he took it one step more. He's seen the guys in Europe, and his deadlifts are all here, double overhand. He can hold on to the bar, allows his shoulders to come back, whereas before he was in front, and he'd be here, and he could never get his shoulders back. So it opened him up a little bit more. But, you know, it's something you might want to try with your grip if you're having trouble holding the bar. And it's different than crushing grip. You know, a lot of guys can smash the grippers, but can't hold on to a lot of weight, and it's two different things. You know, so for me, I started, I started hook gripping her on a bar like that, and now I'll do some other stuff the other way just to lock that finger in. But if you're having trouble, it takes time to get used to it. It might feel like your thumb's coming off initially, but you get used to it, and it makes a big difference if you have a grip problem. And a lot of that, I think it's genetic. You got some 140-pound guys that can squeeze that number 3 gripper, and some big guys that are strong that really can't, and that may not work as much, but some of that's built in. So
you guys setting yourself up for like any other exercises? Do you have a core group of exercises to make yourself strong for the deadlifts?
Usually,
Favorites?
yeah, stiff legs or RDLs. I like doing RDLs. He'll do stiff legs.
I'll do a set of, I'll do a stiff leg cycle, almost like I would almost a deadlift cycle in the off season.
Upper traps? You work the upper traps?
I don't work that much traps. I used to when I was a kid. I used to do shrugs with like 785.
Does a lot of bent over rows for upper back strength.
Bent over rows is my favorite exercise.
RDLs is just same movement, overhand grip. Here, knees slightly bent. You're coming down, back straight. As far as if you start rounding off, then you come back up. If you're relatively flexible, just this position here, working the hamstrings and the low back. Right there. Versus locking out.
Back hand runs over and all.
And do you use a box at all?
Some guys, we got a few athletes that, and I used to stand on a box, and I go to the ground now, and if I'm getting a good. I do. I warm up off a plate, 4-inch plate. I'll set 2 down because that gets me engaging my legs more. So, I'm standing up farther, but I'm pushing my legs harder. Then I'll get to a certain weight. Usually it's close to 600, and I'll take the plate away, and what it feels like then is my motion feels real short, almost half the distance. So I'll warm up standing up, boom, boom, and then when my technique starts to break down standing on that, then from the ground it feels like I'm going about it's like a lockout, or it feels that way anyway. So
I'll do my stiff legs off the block, no higher than 3 inches, but I don't do any regular deadlifts off the block anymore. I got to bend over too far.
And again, he's sumo and I'm conventional.
It doesn't. There's no carryover for me.
We'll do some glute ham raises. The reverse hyper is good. Lockouts. A lot of times, if you alternate, I've done this and I've got success when I felt like I was overtraining, where one week I do lockouts from a certain level, the next week I come from the ground, then lockouts and then from the ground, just because I was burning out after a while, and it was a little bit easier on my back. Or one week I've gone working on speed of the movement off the ground, which is my thing, trying to get the bar to accelerate, and the next week just going up heavy, pulling singles to see how much I could do. So kind of varying it to take it easy on my back a little bit. I think, once in training, your back's gone, it affects your next squat workout, which usually isn't on the same day. Then you try and squat heavy, and then you go back to your next deadlift workout. You dig yourself a hole there.
How do you guys cycle that in your training? Your squat versus your deadlift?
Usually I was squatting on Mondays, deadlift on Fridays. So, if I was going to squat heavy on Monday, maybe I'd take it a little easy on my deadlift. And then you're hitting 2 in the same week sometimes, but then the next week's a little bit easier. You can just plot it out. I think a lot of times you're better off looking on a calendar and seeing how much time you got to your next meet and almost picking days of the week. Everybody wants to squeeze it into a 7-day week. Well, I got to do this on Monday, I got to do this on Thursday, this on Wednesday, this on Saturday. So if you say I want 4 days rest between my squat and my deadlift, or 5 days, pick on a calendar. You can write the days out. Maybe you're doing it on Monday one week, or Wednesday the next week. You're not squeezing your recovery into a 7-day week. Now it becomes easier sometimes with your schedules and whatnot, but it's not the most ideal way to do it. A lot of times we'll write out workout rotations. There's 5 workouts, and we'll rotate them. I'll rotate them through, and I won't do the number 1 before I've done 5, and maybe they're spread out over 10 days.
That actually keeps you a lot more fresh also.
More muscle recovery time.
Well, yeah, you have 5 different workout routines. And I'll do this one for so long, this one for so long. A lot of my core stuff won't change, but a lot of my systems work, or the pace I set at it, the pace I go at it between sets will change.
How long will that cycle last normally before you switch to another exercise routine or cycle?
Off season is usually shorter, 6 weeks or so.
Okay.
In season is just a regular kind of cycle.
Pretty good tomorrow.
Moving around.
When I like my sticking point is at the knees, but if it's farther from up, when I go up way.
That's because you're sticking, even though it stops at the knees, it's really not at the knees. It happens sooner. Momentum takes it just takes it up to the knee. So you have to go below the knee to start your lockouts.
And I think, you know, if you move it around, one time you may be here, the next week you may be here, maybe you're here sometimes. Just work in different parts. It's, you know, a lot of times if it's in a bad position too, you got to adjust the weight accordingly, but I'll move it around. I know what I can handle or how close to what I can handle at different positions on my leg and try and hit, you know, different positions from week to week and not just do the same old spot all the time, because then you just, you know, you're creating a problem somewhere else. Yeah, you got to make sure your body is in that position. Correct, yeah. So if I'm doing a lockout and it's from here, I got to think about how I am when I'm pulling my deadlift up, and I'm not sitting back or leaning over. You know, now in strongman, you're doing lockouts.
If it comes off from those pegs too easy, that means you've cheated. It's never easy.
Doing the one-arm deads.
Messing around, I've done some, but not as part of.
Yeah, just even assistance.
Yeah, it's a good way. If I'm training for something, and I'm not going to do it. If I'm not training for something, I'm messing around a lot of times. I've screwed around doing a lot of things, but I'm also worried about torquing my back one direction over the other direction. So
when the weights start getting heavier, my shoulders tend to drift toward past the bar, and it almost turns into a bent over row. And I still make the lift, but my technique just dies.
It may not be the technique, it may be some muscular weakness in the back. I would concentrate more on that over rows and backward. To be able to hold that back there and keep it retracted as you pull, the reason it falls forward is the muscle things.
is your back straight when you're doing them? Is it flat or is it rounded?
I tend to round a little bit, but sometimes it's flat.
Then it's going to round more as you get heavier.
You know, you can even, like I said, I don't think there's a bad. I think you can get yourself in that position and then pull yourself back to a position. Now you're not going to throw a lot of weight on there, but if you're in that position and you're rounded off and you want to pull yourself back into a proper position to strengthen that area, I think you could do that. I think you just got to be smart about what you're doing. You can't just say, okay, you know, I was doing that with this weight in a deadlift, I'm going to go and do that out of the rack or whatever. But you can work, you know, a lot of different movements. And in traditional textbooks, they may not be the right movement. But as long as you're smart about the weight you're using and what you're doing.
You said before you can condition your body.
Yeah, I do. Like I don't change. I don't do one thing at a certain weight and then do another. It's kind of the same all the way through.
As far as getting you stronger.
But it just.
But in the long run, with the top weight, I mean, you can lift with bad form, light weight, really easy.
Yeah.
You can't do it with heavy weight.
Yeah.
And some of the things I do now with stone lifting or whatever, you're always in a rounded back position. So a lot of times now I'll put myself in that position and try and straighten up. Now I'm not throwing 700 pounds on it doing it, but I'm handling a decent amount of weight I think I can handle because I'm just in a non-advantageous position. So if I do that and I straighten myself up and try and work backwards almost to try and strengthen the area up, I think you can do that. You just, like I said, don't try and handle too much weight right away.
Do you feel Olympic lifting is beneficial in the off-season for a powerlifter?
High bar squats, front squats, high pulls and stuff like that. Stuff's hard. It's generating a lot of muscle, so it's going to help you. It's going to give you muscle or speed that you're going to use for later on.
You feel it's worth the cost though? Because there's a lot of eccentric loading, I know, like with a clean and a snatch.
Well, I mean, all kinds. As long as you recognize that you're a power lifter doing some Olympic lifting movements as an assistance exercise to help that out, and you're not trying to do it as your main thing and trying to max out or set records, then I don't think there's going to be a problem as long as you don't sacrifice your technique and take a chance. Because that's not what you're doing.
You know, I think one other assistance exercise that I know he does, and I talked to him about it, that I do and I think helps me a lot, and to go heavy with it is, I'm not a big advocate of leg presses, but I think leg press helps my push off the ground. And throwing a lot of times I'll warm up on a leg press. I'll go up and do a lot of heavy sets because it doesn't tax my legs that much. But then when I go to the deadlift the deadlift feels quite a bit better. My legs are warmed up, and I feel like I get the same push, conventional anyway, and I'm sure you can adjust your feet a little bit to get in a sumo position if you got a big enough plate to get that same push off the ground. And I think leg press is a good assistance exercise to throw.
It can help teach your body how to push without having to use your back.
So you use the leg press before your deadlift, actually?
It's a warm-up, yeah.
Really? So on your squat day, you don't use the leg press at all, then? So just squat?
Rarely. Sometimes I'll just do it as if I want some actual work, and I'll do like a high volume stuff.
Interesting. Where do you throw the chest and the back, the bench press workout with the back?
Usually it kind of depends upon the schedule. It's the next day after squats. If it's a Tuesday, it's a Tuesday. If it's a Wednesday, it's a Wednesday. Then Friday's deadlift.
So if Monday is squat day, Tuesday is definitely bench day.
Yeah.
But would you do rows on that day also?
No, I do it on my back.
Only on the back day. So just all like barbell bent over rows, any vertical pulls, like lap
I used to love chin ups, but I used to do bicep tendonitis stuff. I'll do some pull downs and some other, like a hammer strength type of row or some other movement, just to, I want more muscle back there. So I'm going to help out. And I'll do some back belts on that day also.
Can you break down your routine? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday?
Monday is all leg stuff. Since I hurt my leg, I got to do calves all the time now. And sometimes that work.
Yeah.
Tuesday's usually off for me. Then Wednesday is all my chest stuff and some tricep stuff. Thursday I'll take off. Friday I'll deadlift and do all my back stuff. Saturday I usually go in and do some light benches, usually wide grips for speed and a little bit of shoulders. The reason I have Tuesday and Thursday off is because, like, traveling here Thursday night, I know I might do deadlift on Friday, so I can throw it in on Thursday. If it was Wednesday, I could finish on Tuesday. So that's the way I have to go.
Mark, with your strongman training, I actually have two questions. How do you set your week schedule when you're training for a contest, and also what carryover exercises do you use with your athletes and football players?
Usually events, just for scheduling reasons, is on weekends. If I can do an event, a log press or something that I can set up in the gym pretty fast, I'll do it during the week. Stones and farmer's walk or tire flips or that stupid wheel that tests nothing, that we set up on Saturday, because it just takes...
Event training, how often do you do that?
Sometimes it depends upon how much time I got before the next contest. Usually at least Saturday, sometimes Saturday and Sunday, depending upon, they tell you what the events are 6 weeks ahead of time. We may take 3 of them on Saturday, 3 of them on Sunday, and then try and, like, some of the times the lifts you're doing in the gym can mirror one of the events. If you're doing a deadlift, an overhead press, thick bar press, grip event, stuff like that you can do during the week because it's easily set up. So that's...
How often do you do your gym work?
When I'm not training for a contest, sometimes 5-6 days a week. When I'm training for a contest, I try and get a little more rest, 3 to 4 days a week. Now, it depends upon my schedule. I'm usually stronger in February and March because I get January and December out where I'm a little slower. Same thing early in the summer, a little bit stronger. So I try and do more lifting then. Now I'm kind of squeezing a lot in a short period of time. And as far as the lifting that our athletes do, we'll do tire flips, farmers walks. I set up competitions in the off season. They pick their own teams. Here's the event. You figure out who's going to do what, and we keep track, keep a scoreboard on the wall and all that type of stuff, give away T-shirts to the winner, things like that. So not so much a lot involved in training. I'm more concerned about, the competition level. Guys laying it out on the line when it's tough for them.
Mark? I saw that on World Strongest Man. What kind of reaction do you get from the athletes? Do they love that? Or?
They look forward to it. I mean, it's on the wall. I just got on the T-shirts this week, and it's, some guys don't know how to compete, believe it or not. They don't know how to lay it all out on the line, and, the freshmen that come in, I really don't want to. Then you see the older guys killing themselves over it, and then they're like, oh, this is serious business, First one's a tug of war all the time. You find out, you see some guys hanging on the rope and some guys pulling on the rope,
Did you actually get the stones, or did you get, like, the super heavy medicine balls?
No, we get stones, we get kegs, we get tires, the whole deal. Yep. I think we're almost out of time.
You show band press, and touch the hand, just show proper technique.
Would I? When we're done, we can, because he's giving me this. Okay.
Don't do them, that's my favorite. From squatting and deadlifting without a belt for so many years, it's got pretty short. So as long as I can still see it.
As long as I can see over mine, it's okay.
That's the way.
And a lot of emphasis is put on the car going up on the deadlift. On the way down, what's be kept in mind about
Control, keeping everything tight. You got to be in a good position when you set it down to be able to pull it in. If you're doing reps.
You're saying you go down weight.
Fairly close. Sometimes it's hard because you don't want to bang on your knees. But when you let it down, you don't just want to let it down like this because you can stay high.
So if I'm pulling on a deadlift and I stand up with it, I'm down, boom, reset, under control, fast but under control, so it's not, boom, and then my body's up here and the bar's down there because I'm pulling on it too fast.
To let it down, you actually have to let your hips relax. As opposed to on the top when it's all tight, you have to let it relax, or else you won't get back because you won't get down low enough. Your hips will not tight.
Back to the beginning, yeah. Gravity will pull it down, straight down. And if you keep your body in tight enough, it'll help you get in the right position. Like I said, the second rep is always easier than the first rep, as long as you're not doing a max attempt. If I'm doing 80% and I pull the first one, it feels hard. The second one feels easier because I'm in perfect position for my second rep versus the first one off the floor where I tend to lean one way or the other sometimes. So I think we ready?
I think we should all thank Eddie and Mercedes.
Thank you, guys.